So, can you find overpowered weapons in Dying Light right from the start of the game? Well, in this video I'll be showing you how to find two special developer weapons as soon as you leave Brecken Tower, and that's before even starting your first quest. I'll also be taking a look at whether or not these weapons are even worth having at this stage of the game, and giving you some helpful tips along the way. I've left timestamps in the description if you'd like to jump to any points of interest right now though. The very first weapon Crane picks up in the game is on the 13th floor during the tutorial in the tower. It's a simple pipe, and if you take a look at the stats you'll see that it only has 23 damage and it's pretty low on durability and handling, but you can repair it 3 times before it's completely broken. You can pick up 2 more weapons just before you leave the tower from the quartermaster. He'll give you a rusty adjustable wrench, and you can also take the table leg from the counter as well. So that's 3 weapons to start with, but all are similar in strength, and despite the zombies being very weak at this point, they'll still be pretty hard to kill with these rubbish weapons. And having no skills in the skill trees yet is going to make it even harder. So let's go and get our first OP weapon. As soon as you've left Brecken Tower, you can now open the map in the menu. It is hard to see any details at first as it's all shaded out until you start exploring, but if you move the cursor to the right and zoom in about here, you'll see a tiny little island just off the coastline. Drop a waypoint there because that is our first location. Then back out of the map and press Survivor Sense and you'll see which direction to take and how far away it is, and at 380 meters it's pretty close, so that's why we're going to get this one first. If you do get a bit lost on the way, just hit Survivor Sense again to get your bearings, and fairly soon you'll find this rocky area. From here you're just going to have to jump in and swim the rest of the way. As you round the little island you see a shiny gold sword sticking up out of a body, and after climbing out you see a message saying that this EXPcalibur belongs to me. As you can see, there's a prompt to hold the action button in order to take it, but he doesn't want to give up his weapon easily, and you do have to hold the button for about 2.5 minutes before it finally breaks free. It's a bit tedious, but it's worth doing, and amazingly, just running from the tower to here and taking the sword has added my first survivor rank point. Don't be distracted though, as you need to take the sword quickly and stand back as far as you can to avoid being burned by the corpse. It starts off small and then almost engulfs the whole rock, but you do have to stay, as there's not just a weapon here but also a blueprint to retrieve once the fire burns out, and that will craft a silver version of this gold sword that we've just got, and I'll be looking at that a bit later. So let's take a look at the gold version of the EXPcalibur. If you look at the stats you can see that it does over 10 times the damage of your current weapons. There are 3 mod slots, but it's really not worth upgrading. It makes so little difference and it'd be a waste of mods in my opinion. Also, it only has a durability of 7, which is really weak and actually much weaker than your current weapons. It can't be repaired either, so it's going to break very quickly, and this is one of a kind. It can't be replaced, so you might want to just keep this great looking sword as a collectible to preserve it, but of course I'm not going to do that, so let's take a look at what it can do. Firstly, it has a kind of early warning effect, in that when you're nearing any danger, Crane draws the sword up defensively and then drops it back down again as you back away. So all on its own, without you doing anything, it goes up and down depending on how close you are to danger. Okay, so it's not a major necessity, but it's a cool little detail. Secondly, if you drop it onto the ground and crouch over it, you can also actually see Crane's reflection in the blade. Of course, it's not a true reflection, but again, it's a nice little detail they've added just for fun. So, how much damage does it do then? Well, it is pretty savage at first, it has to be said. With the zombies still weak at this point, it deals the damage of a much more powerful weapon. Of course, 324 damage is nothing compared to the weapons you can make later in the game, but the difficulty increases in line with your progress too, so here, 324 damage is more than enough. Sadly though, because of the low durability of this weapon, it will not only lose its effectiveness really quickly, but the blade itself appears damaged. I must stress that despite this you should still keep it for later on though. It may be tempting to sell it for the $13,000 that it's worth at the store, but I assure you that it will come into its own again despite its appearance once you've reached level 6 power and unlocked the charged attack skill. Honestly, the result is worth waiting for, and I'll show you what happens later in the video after we've reached that level. One more thing you can do is something that the Dying Light wiki page says you can't. According to that, throwing the EXPcalibur at a zombie would render it lost, and you wouldn't be able to pick it up afterwards. However, on PS4 at least, this wasn't the case, so I don't know if it's been patched or whether it's different on other versions. The melee throw is unlocked at level 4 power, so it doesn't take long to obtain that skill, but I still wouldn't recommend using the EXPcalibur for it though, as it's easy to accidentally lose it in a crowd or in the grass, etc. So, you'd think that as we now have the EXPcalibur blueprint, we'd just be able to make another one, right? Well, not only is it a different version of it, but it really isn't that simple either. You can find it in the developer blueprint section, and although it doesn't need a base weapon, like most blueprints, crafting one still requires all of these components. Of course, most of this stuff can be found around the map easily enough, but electronics are very rare, and the bolter tissue isn't even available until you reach the 5th main story quest in the game. So this blueprint is useless to you at the start of the game, but I have crafted one in my main save just to show you how it compares to the gold version and to see whether or not it's worth all that effort, as this one's got an even lower durability of just 5 and only 1 mod slot. To look at, it appears duller than the gold version, but weirdly, Crane's reflection is much clearer on this one. And you might have also noticed that the crown on the hilt of the gold one isn't a feature on this silver one. This one still gives you the reaction when you approach zombies, but striking a blow with this one creates an awesome lightning effect over them. As expected though, it really doesn't do much damage after the first few hits. Striking them over and over again looked cool, but it did nothing, and a charged attack just does the same thing here. Strangely though, the blade doesn't appear to get visibly damaged on this version. I have to say though that the silver version is completely useless, and it's definitely not worth all of the effort involved with collecting the components for it. So, let's go and find a much more powerful and easier to craft blueprint hidden further north in the slums. So if you open the map again and move the cursor in a northwesterly direction from Brecken Tower, you'll see this building. Again, drop a waypoint, back out of the map, hit Survivor Sense, and you'll see this one's a bit further away than the last one, but it still don't take too long to get to. The zombies are pretty slow at this point, so you can simply run past them without any of them grabbing you. Also, at this stage in the game, there's no virals yet, so you really don't have to worry about making any noise either. If you do crash through a roof, then you'll hear the viral sound, but they don't actually come running until you've progressed a bit further into the game. And also, the day and night cycle hasn't even started yet, so you really can take as long as you want to look around. Once you've got to the location we're looking for, you'll see this apartment block, and unfortunately, we're going to have to get to the rooftop. The grappling hook skill doesn't unlock until level 12 survivor rank, so there's really no other option at the moment other than climbing up there. Firstly, jump over the fence at the front of the building, then run towards the AC unit on the wall ahead. Jump up and grab onto it, and then turn right to reach onto this street lamp and then jump over to that. You may need a few attempts to get it, but once you have, it's fairly straightforward climbing up onto the balconies and then onto the rooftop afterwards. Go around to the left of this outbuilding in front of you, and when you see a crate with a pink rabbit on it, you're in the right place. Just climb onto it to reveal a GRE box hidden in the space behind, but of course you can't just take it again, and the box will only open after kicking it repeatedly 75 times. It's a bit tedious, but believe me, it'll be worth your time. When you finally open the box and taken the blueprint, you can then find it in the developer blueprint section alongside your EXPcalibur. This blueprint also does not require a base weapon and simply needs alcohol and metal parts to craft a 500 damage machete, which is pretty amazing at this stage of the game. The durability of this one's gone up to 35, and again it can't be repaired, but that isn't the whole story with this particular weapon, and I'll talk more about that once we've crafted it. So, to find all of the components, you're going to need to get back down to the ground. So, walk to the back of the building, up onto the ledge, and falling from this height is definitely going to kill you if you hit the ground. But if you aim for a vehicle, in this case that yellow ambulance below, it will break your fall and won't damage you at all. Alcohol is the more common of the components that we're going to need. You can find them in most buildings in the slums, mainly in fridges or cupboards. You can find metal parts on zombie corpses or in buildings, but they are much rarer. If you have any broken weapons, you can dismantle those for metal parts, but these weak weapons only give up 1 metal part each, so you're still going to have to find some more to craft the machete. The most consistent place to find metal parts turns out to be these blue wheelie bins, which can be found behind most buildings in the slums. Some of them will only give up string and some are, empty, but more often than not you will find metal parts, and soon enough we can craft the Korek Machete. The Korek Machete is named after one of the Dying Light developer team, and it has his name printed in bold along the blade. You can also see Crane's reflection again in this one, but not quite as clearly as the EXPcalibur. There are spaces for 4 mods, but again they're hard to come by at this early stage, and to be honest it really doesn't need it, as it literally makes mincemeat out of the zombies. You can just walk through them all, slashing as you go as if they're not even there. Honestly, this weapon will turbocharge your power level progress. For some reason, the durability of this weapon doesn't show on the equipped icon in the bottom right hand side of the screen, but if you bring up the weapon wheel, you can see how much is left there. Even when the durability gets down to 0 though, the Korek Machete still 2 to 3 hits everything and simply does not break or even appear damaged, so you really don't need to repair it. The only thing I found was that if you drop it, then you can't pick it up again unless it's one that still has some durability left. It's a strange quirk, but I guess, just don't drop it until you have the components to craft another one. The Korek Machete is seemingly indestructible, and for that reason, I was able to quickly get to power level 6 and unlock the charged attack, so now I can go back and show you why you should keep your gold EXPcalibur. So what is so great about the charged attack for the EXPcalibur then? Well, despite being totally broken now, it has a hyper mode effect that literally sends the zombies flying into the distance. It looks really impressive, but it doesn't actually kill the zombies when the sword's broken. However, if you find a section on the bridges where the walls crumbled a bit, then you can use the zombies to practice your swing and turn it into a makeshift driving range. It's great fun, and of course the fall actually does kill the zombies, so it's win-win. If you find that the crowds of zombies are overwhelming you a bit, then just switch back to the Korek Machete and thin them out a bit. Leave it so that you've just got a few well spaced apart, and then you can take your time to practice your swing. And believe me, it is pretty good fun. So there you have it. You really can find overpowered weapons in Dying Light right from the start of the game. There is actually an even more powerful correct version in the game, but that can only be found after reaching the Old Town. It's also a bit of a grind to get, but the two I've shown here are plenty powerful for slicing through the first few quests in the story. So I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it, and if you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers!